On a warm Saturday afternoon in a suburban Portland parking lot, a black man calmly pulled into an open spot near the grocery store entrance. But his quiet moment quickly shattered when an angry white woman claimed the space was hers. What started as a tense exchange over parking escalated into a slap, a hit-and-run, and a courtroom battle that left everyone stunned. She thought her lies would bury him. What she didn't expect was that the calm man standing before her wasn't someone to be pushed around. And this time she was about to learn a lesson she'd never forget. On a bright Saturday afternoon in Portland, the grocery store parking lot buzzed with cars crawling for open spots. Terrence Moore, 39, spotted one near the entrance, a small win after a long week. He eased his sedan into the space, calm and careful. As he opened his door, a loud screech of tires sliced through the quiet. A white Honda Pilot skidded to a stop beside him. The driver's window flew down. "Hey," a white woman shouted, "that was my spot." Terrence blinked, confused. "Didn't see you," he said evenly. "It was open when I pulled in." She slammed her door and stormed toward him, eyes flashing. "I had my blinker on. Of course you didn't notice. You people never do." There it was. You people. A phrase heavy with the weight of assumption. Terrence's jaw tensed. "Ma'am, it's just a parking space. I don't want trouble." She stepped closer, finger jabbing. "Trouble? You're the trouble. Coming into our neighborhoods thinking you can take whatever you want. You even live around here?" He inhaled slowly. This wasn't about parking. It was about her needing someone to put beneath her. "I live 10 minutes from here," he said, voice steady. "Now, please, step back." "Oh, don't get uppity with me," she sneered. "You people think you're so special, so above the rules. Let me guess. You'll play the victim now." Terrence turned, deciding to walk away. That's when she shoved him. He stumbled, catching himself on a shopping cart. His pulse surged. He turned back. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Her voice shrieked. "I'm not done. You don't get to ignore me. Lady, walk away before this becomes something you'll regret." And then she spat the word that cut deeper than a slap. "Don't tell me what to do, boy." The word landed like a slap of its own. He clenched his fists, but before he could respond, she did something worse. She slapped him. Hard. Open palm. Right across the face. The sound cracked across the lot. Terrence froze. The burn on his cheek wasn't just pain, it was humiliation. He walked toward the store, her shrieks echoing behind him. The sting on his cheek was nothing compared to what boiled inside, humiliation, and the weight of knowing how this would be spun. Inside, the air was cool. He gripped the car tightly, trying to steady himself. He had reacted. Controlled, yes, but he had laid a hand on her, and she would twist it. Even now he knew how this would be seen, not as a man defending himself, but as a threat. "Yo!" A voice startled him. He turned to see a Safeway delivery guy, mid-20s. Name tag said Carlos. "You all right, man?" Terrence blinked. "I'm fine." Carlos hesitated, then stepped closer. "I saw her hit you, outside. You didn't do anything wrong, man. You were trying to walk away. She just lost it." Terrence exhaled slowly, the pressure in his chest easing just a notch. "Thanks." Carlos shrugged. "People like her think they can do anything. Just watch your back." Those words followed him to checkout, to the parking lot, where reality hit again. This time, literally. From a distance he saw it, deep, deliberate scratches carved into the side of his car. Fresh, raw, cruel. His stomach dropped. He stepped closer, heart thudding. Paint curled at the edges of the gashes, metal exposed like torn skin. This wasn't some accident. This was personal. He heard a chuckle, looked up. Linda was leaning against her SUV across the row, sipping water like it was any other Saturday. "Looks like someone's having a rough day," she called out, mock sweet. "Maybe learn not to take what's not yours next time." "You keyed my car." Terrence's voice was low but lethal. Linda smiled, unapologetic. "Call it a lesson in manners." He stepped forward, fists clenched. "Oh, relax," she laughed. "You already slapped a lady today. Gonna try for a second felony?" Terrence stared at her, chest heaving. "You're sick." No, she said, sliding into her SUV. I'm realistic. You people think you can bark and whine your way into power, but you're still just guests here, and someone needs to remind you. Before he could respond, she gunned the engine. Crunch. The back of her SUV slammed into the front of his car, crushing the bumper. She paused, met his eyes through the rearview mirror, then sped off. For a second, Terrence didn't move, couldn't breathe. That wasn't just vandalism, that was domination. She wanted him to feel helpless, wanted him to know she could humiliate him, break his property, and drive away laughing. Not this time. He pulled out his phone. His hand trembled as he dialed 911. Yes, he said, forcing calm into his voice. A woman just deliberately hit my car and fled the scene. I'm following her now. He gave them her make, model, license plate. As he drove behind her, a block or two behind, adrenaline surged. He wasn't chasing revenge. He was chasing truth. For once, he wouldn't be the one to walk away and disappear. Ahead, Linda's SUV made a sharp turn toward a residential street. Terrence stayed with her, headlights off, heart pounding. He didn't know how this would end, but this time he'd make damn sure it wouldn't end with her smirking at him over her shoulder. The phone felt heavy in Terrence's hand as he pressed it to his ear, the weight of everything crashing down on him all at once, the scratches on his car, the sting on his cheek, her smug laugh vanishing into the distance. His other hand trembled as he tried to keep his voice steady when the dispatcher answered. Yes, he said, forcing calm into every syllable. I'd like to report an incident. A woman just intentionally hit my car and fled. I'm following her now at a safe distance. He rattled off the make and model of Linda's white Honda Pilot, the direction she headed, the damage she caused. The dispatcher assured him officers were en route and advised him to remain calm. But that word, calm, sounded almost insulting after what he'd just endured. Terrence kept his eyes locked on the SUV up ahead, its license plate seared into his mind like a brand. She weaved through the quiet residential streets of Portland's West End as if she hadn't just committed a crime in broad daylight. Each turn she took only fueled the fire in his chest. This wasn't just about paint and metal. She had made it personal. She had tried to reduce him to something disposable. As they reached a stoplight on 31st and Fremont, red glowing above them, two patrol cars pulled in from the opposite direction. Flashing lights slicing the calm afternoon. Linda's brake lights lit up as she slowed, and Terrence saw her silhouette stiffen behind the wheel. She was caught. She pulled over slowly, her SUV jerking slightly as it came to a halt. Terrence parked a safe distance behind, heart pounding against his ribs. For a few seconds he stayed in the car, gripping the steering wheel, gathering his breath. Then he stepped out. Two officers approached Linda's SUV from opposite sides. She didn't get out. Instead, she flailed one hand wildly from the driver's window, already shouting before they even spoke. "That man's following me," she screamed, pointing straight at Terrence. "He hit me earlier and now he's stalking me. I'm scared for my life. Do something." Her voice pierced the air, high-pitched and frantic, the performance beginning in full. One of the officers, a composed black man in his 40s with a nameplate that read Reynolds, turned toward Terrence as he approached. "Sir, what's going on here?" he asked, neutral but alert. Terrence gestured toward the SUV. "That woman damaged my car twice, once by keying it, then by backing into it. She left the scene and I called it in. I have the photos. And she slapped me earlier, in the store parking lot, after verbally harassing me." "She's lying," Linda shrieked from her window. "He attacked me first. He slapped me. He's violent. Look at me. I'm the victim here." Officer Reynolds held up a hand to her. "Ma'am, we'll get to you. Please stay in your vehicle." Linda ignored him and opened her door with force, stepping out and waving her arms like a woman possessed. "You're really going to believe him? Look at me. I'm a mother, a homeowner. I live in this neighborhood, and you're going to listen to some thug in a hoodie?" Terrence's face went cold. The air around him felt thinner, and something sharp twisted inside his chest. It wasn't just what she said, it was the way she said it. Like his very presence was the crime. Like being black and angry and tired somehow made him dangerous. Officer Reynolds' jaw flexed. "Ma'am, I need you to step back and lower your voice." Linda stepped closer to Terence, jabbing her finger toward him like a weapon. He belongs in a cage. You want to know the truth? He hit me, and now he's stalking me. That's what they do. They push until they get what they want, until someone ends up bleeding. Terence's voice cut through her tirade, firm and unwavering. You need to stop. Oh, don't you dare speak to me, she spat, her whole body shaking with fury. You think because you dress nice and speak soft, you're better than the rest of them? You're all the same, angry, arrogant, and now you're going to cry victim? That was when Officer Reynolds stepped forward and gently but firmly placed himself between them. Ma'am, he said sharply, step away, now. Linda turned on him, eyes wild. You're doing this because of him? Because of politics? Because you're scared of being called racist? Well, I'm not scared. I know what I saw. Reynolds didn't flinch. Ma'am, you're being detained for further questioning. Please return to your vehicle. Before he could even finish, Linda lunged, not at him, but at Terence. Her fist came fast, sloppy with rage, and struck his shoulder. You think you've won? You'll regret this, she screamed. Terence stumbled back, stunned not by the force, but by the audacity. She just assaulted him again, in front of uniformed police officers. Reynolds and the other officer reacted immediately, grabbing her arms and pulling her back. She fought like a child mid-tantrum, screaming at the top of her lungs. You're nothing. You don't belong here, you hear me? You don't belong. Terence watched as they wrestled her into cuffs. The whole world seemed to blur for a moment, the weight of her hatred, the disbelief that she would take it this far. Reynolds turned to him as Linda continued to scream from the back seat of the squad car. You all right? Terence nodded, though his body trembled. I think so. Good, Reynolds said, tone softening, because you just handled that better than most would have. Terence didn't feel victorious, he just felt exhausted. The next morning came heavy. The light outside Terence's bedroom window was soft and gray, the kind that blurred time and mood into something shapeless. He'd barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, her voice came back, sharp, entitled, venomous, her face twisted in rage, the sound of her fist hitting his shoulder, the wild flailing as the officers dragged her away, the words she screamed at him. You don't belong here. They stuck like thorns beneath his skin. He sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of black coffee gone cold, staring blankly at the scratched police report and the officer's card, Detective Marcus Reynolds. Steady voice. Honest eyes. The kind of man who didn't flinch when things got loud. He'd been the only reason the situation hadn't spiraled into something darker. Terence had seen too many videos, read too many headlines, lived through enough quiet injustices to know how easily it could have gone another way. He looked down at the paperwork. Formal charges, it said, assault, property damage, disorderly conduct. Part of him wanted to let it go, to shove it all into a drawer and pretend none of it happened. But pretending didn't fix things. Pretending was what let people like Linda keep thinking they could scream, shove, slap, crash a car into yours, and still walk away. By 9 a.m. he was at the precinct. The air smelled of old paper, cheap coffee, and something sterile underneath. A young officer at the front desk looked up as he approached. Can I help you? I'm here to press charges, Terence said simply. There was an incident yesterday. I gave a statement. But I want to move forward, officially. The officer nodded, handed him a clipboard. Fill this out. Someone will call you back shortly. Terence sat in the corner, pen tapping lightly against the form, the words taking longer to come than he expected. It wasn't because he didn't know what happened. It was because writing it down made it permanent, real, and louder. Every sentence was a memory, a punch in the gut. She said boy, she shoved me, she slapped me, she keyed my car, she hit it with her SUV. She screamed I was the threat. 20 minutes later, the door at the far end of the lobby opened and Officer Reynolds stepped through, clipboard in hand. Mr. Moore, he said with a short nod. Come with me. They walked in silence down a quiet hallway, past a glass window with blinds tilted half shut, into a small office. There were no windows, just 4 beige walls, a computer, and the weight of yesterday still clinging to Terence's shoulders. I read your statements, Reynolds said, taking a seat. And after everything that happened, what I witnessed included. You're absolutely within your rights to press charges. You sure you want to do this? Terence nodded without hesitation. I'm sure. She needs to be held accountable. Reynolds looked him in the eye. Good, because with the damage to your car, the witness testimony from Carlos, and the physical assault in front of uniformed officers, she's not walking away from this. Terence let out a slow breath, but even then the tension in his chest didn't ease. Doesn't feel like a win, he said quietly. Feels like I survived something I never asked for. Reynolds' voice softened, because that's exactly what it was. As they finalized the report, there was a commotion down the hall. A door slammed, then voices, loud ones. Get your hands off me. I have a right to be here. Terence's blood turned cold. He knew that voice. Reynolds stood up, walking to the door just as another officer stepped into view, his hand gripping the arm of a struggling Linda Cartwright. Her face was red, hair wild, her eyes locked like heat-seeking missiles the moment she saw Terence. You, she hissed, lunging forward. This is all your fault. You think you can ruin me? I'll sue you. I'll ruin your job, your name, everything you've got. Ma'am, step back, the officer barked, tightening his grip, but she didn't stop. You think this ends with court? You think anyone's going to believe you over me? I'm a mother, a tax-paying citizen, a white woman. Reynolds stepped between them, blocking her view of Terence, his voice firm now. She's here for her arraignment. Didn't think it'd be this early. Terence said nothing, but his fists were clenched at his sides, his body rigid. Even after everything, after being arrested, cuffed, and charged, she still looked at him like he was dirt beneath her shoes. As she was dragged down the hallway, her voice rang out behind her, cracked and feral. You're nothing, do you hear me? You're nothing! The door slammed shut. Silence fell like a curtain. Reynolds returned to his seat, shaking his head. Some people don't know when they've already lost. Terence sat back down, hands trembling slightly, but this time it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. It was anger. It was resolve. I'm not letting her off easy, he said. She crossed every line there is. Reynolds gave him a steady nod. Then we'll make sure the court sees that. And for the first time since it all began, Terence felt something close to strength. Not because he had fought back, but because he had refused to disappear. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of waiting, replaying everything in his head, watching the news with one eye, the court summons folded in his drawer like a weight he hadn't dared move. Terence kept his routine steady. Work, gym, groceries. But the incident hung over his every step like a shadow. The world hadn't changed. No headlines, no outrage, just silence. The kind of silence that screamed if you knew how to listen. But today the silence broke. He stood outside the Multnomah County Courthouse, wearing a pressed navy blazer, the air crisp against his skin. Inside, Linda Cartwright was due to face charges for assault and property damage. He walked up the courthouse steps not like a man chasing revenge, but like someone unwilling to be erased. Inside, the courtroom was sterile, cold in its symmetry. Linda sat at the defense table, her hair tied back tight, jaw set in a mask of feigned dignity. She didn't look at him. She didn't have to. He already knew she hadn't changed. Her lawyer, a graying man in a tan suit, whispering with practiced urgency. The judge entered. They all stood, and just like that it began. The prosecution opened strong. Rachel Hayes, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s, laid out every detail with surgical precision. The racial slurs, the slap, the vehicle damage, the second physical attack in front of officers. Mr. Moore was not simply harassed, she said. He was targeted. For existing in the wrong place in the eyes of someone who believed she had the right to decide who belonged. Linda's lawyer countered with emotion. Miss Cartwright is a mother, a respected member of the community, he said. She made a mistake, but Mr. Moore escalated by retaliating physically. This wasn't about race, it was about a moment of misunderstanding. Terence's jaw tightened. Then came the witness. Carlos. Calm, clear, and direct. I saw her slap him first. He was walking away, and when he responded it was more like a defense, a reaction, not aggression. Rachel Hayes nodded. Thank you, Mr. Ibanez. No further questions. Then Linda took the stand. I was overwhelmed, she said, voice trembling, eyes downcast. I wasn't thinking straight. I'm sorry for how I reacted, but I was scared. When Mr. Moore hit me back, I felt threatened. Rachel approached slowly. Miss Cartwright, did you slap him first? Linda hesitated. Yes, but? And did you later back your SUV into his parked car? It wasn't intentional. You keyed his car? Silence. Yes. Rachel turned to the jury. That's not fear, that's rage. That's entitlement. The court fell silent. The judge called a recess before closing arguments. Terence stood quietly, letting the tension settle. He wasn't angry anymore, he was tired, but under that exhaustion lived something harder, conviction. When they returned, closing arguments came fast. Rachel's voice was firm, her final words landing heavy. This isn't just about a slap or a scratched car. It's about what people like Ms. Cartwright think they can get away with. The jury deliberated for just under an hour. Verdict: guilty on all counts. Terence didn't smile, didn't flinch, he just breathed. Linda stared at the floor, lips trembling, but offered no apology. He walked out into the cold morning light, not triumphant, but intact, still standing. The cold air outside the courthouse brushed against Terence's skin like a quiet reminder. This wasn't over, not really. The trial had ended, the verdict was in, guilty, but justice didn't feel like triumph. It felt like survival. He stepped down the concrete stairs, slowly, every movement deliberate, as if his body were still catching up to everything his spirit had just carried. Behind him, the courthouse buzzed with low voices, shuffling papers, the echo of doors closing, but ahead, the street stretched open and silent. His car was parked where he'd left it, repaired now, its surface smooth, no more scratches. And yet, when he looked at it, he still saw them. Not in the paint, but in his memory. Ghosts carved by hatred. He opened the door and sat down behind the wheel. For a while, he didn't start the engine. He just stared at his own reflection in the rearview mirror. The man staring back looked tired, yes, but not broken. His eyes still held weight, but there was clarity there too, the kind that came after a storm. His phone buzzed. A message from Carlos. Heard about the verdict, glad she didn't get away with it. Terence allowed himself a quiet nod, not a smile exactly, just acknowledgement. Carlos had spoken up when no one else did. That mattered. He looked out the windshield at the world moving on, people walking dogs, a couple laughing across the street. Life, untouched, as if his world hadn't just cracked and stitched itself back together in a courtroom. And yet, he knew. This wasn't the last time. Linda wasn't the only one. There would be others. More parking lots, more slurs, more moments where dignity would be treated like a threat. But today, he didn't let it slide. Today, he stood up, and someone listened. As he started the engine and pulled into traffic, the sunlight broke through the gray clouds, just a sliver, but enough. He didn't feel victorious, he felt visible, and for now, that was enough.